Most people navigate relationships through guesswork. They react to behavior without understanding the patterns behind it. They get confused by contradictions. They take things personally that were never personal to begin with. And because they never learn to see the structure underneath the surface, they keep repeating the same mistakes with different people in different forms. Today, we're going to slow that down. This isn't about judging anyone. It's not about blaming men or women. And it's definitely not about romantic illusions or cynical resentment. It's about understanding behavior clearly, practically, without distortion. What you're about to learn is not a rule book. It's a framework, a way of seeing patterns that turns confusion into clarity. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And a warning before we continue. This will not confirm what you want to hear. It won't tell you that people are angels. It won't tell you that people are villains. It will show you reality. Complex, structured, and navigable if you're willing to understand it rather than react to it. Personality is not chaos, it's structure. People don't behave randomly. Their behavior follows patterns. Those patterns emerge from psychological configurations formed early in life and remain relatively stable over time. Think of it like an operating system. The hardware is biology. The software is personality. And just like computers, there are only so many operating systems in use. This doesn't mean people are machines, but it does mean behavior becomes predictable enough to navigate relationships with far more clarity than most people ever achieve. The framework we'll use today isn't the only way to understand psychology, but it's practical. It maps onto real behavior in real relationships, and it gives language to things you've probably noticed but couldn't articulate. The psychological core and the roles we play. Every person has a psychological core, a fundamental orientation shaping how they relate to the world. This core doesn't change much over a lifetime. It's the default setting. What does change is how the core expresses itself. The same person can appear completely different at work versus at home, with friends versus with strangers, early in a relationship versus years into it. These are not lies. They are adaptations. Humans are social beings. We adjust presentation based on environment. The mistake people make is assuming one expression is real and the others are fake. That's not how it works. All of them are real. They're different facets of the same underlying structure. Your task is not to choose which version is real. Your task is to identify the core, recognize the role being expressed, and notice when roles shift. That's the foundation of understanding behavior, where the core reveals itself. The core becomes most visible under pressure, stress, fatigue, fear, unexpected situations. Roles require energy to maintain. When energy drops, the core shows through. That's why moments of stress reveal more than moments of performance. 6. Dominant psychological orientations. Most people are combinations, but understanding the pure forms helps you recognize patterns. First, attention-focused orientation. Self-worth is tied to being seen, noticed, validated. Energy rises with attention, fades without it. This isn't moral vanity, it's a psychological configuration. Second, status-focused orientation, organized around hierarchy, position, achievement. Relationships reflect identity and social rank. Third, connection-focused orientation, oriented toward emotional bonding, depth, intimacy. Less interested in being known by many, and more interested in being known deeply by a few. Fourth, security-focused orientation, stability, predictability, safety, willing to trade excitement for peace. Fifth, experience-focused orientation, novelty, sensation, intensity. Routine feels constricting. They pursue what feels alive. Sixth, control-focused orientation, order, influence, authority, calm when directing outcomes, anxious when chaos appears. Most people have one or two dominant orientations. You can often identify them by what someone talks about freely, what energizes them, what triggers strong reactions. Triggers reveal orientation. Persona, the interface, not the lie. Carl Jung called it the persona, the social mask we wear. It's not dishonest, it's functional. No one can present their entire psychological complexity at all times. Différents personas servent différents purposes. Warmth and approachability, vulnerability and softness, confidence and power, innocence and harmlessness, distance and mystery. Personas are tools. They're selected based on context and intent. The question isn't, is this fake? The question is, what is this persona trying to achieve? Skilled individuals can shift personas fluidly. That's not necessarily manipulation, but it does mean you shouldn't assume today's version is tomorrow's default. Over time, you learn to distinguish between earned traits and performed traits. The shadow, what's hidden, not gone. If the persona is what's shown, the shadow is what's hidden. The shadow contains rejected traits, fears, impulses, things that conflict with self-image or social acceptability. They don't disappear. They operate underground. The shadow leaks out under stress, intoxication, or emotional intensity. Sweetness can hide resentment. Toughness can hide fear. Confidence can hide insecurity. The shadow isn't evil. It's simply unacknowledged. You often detect it through strong denials. I'm not jealous. I don't care about money. I'm completely over my ex. Excessive denial usually points directly at the shadow. Fear is the engine. If you want to understand behavior deeply, look for the fear underneath it. Fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of being controlled, fear of being forgotten, fear of being trapped. Behavior becomes logical once you see the fear. These fears form early. They don't respond easily to reassurance or logic. They operate below conscious thought. And fear predicts sacrifice. Fear of abandonment sacrifices dignity. Fear of control sacrifices intimacy. Fear of invisibility sacrifices authenticity. Role switching and adaptation. The same person can seem like different people across time. That's not necessarily deception. It's role switching. Healthy switching has coherence. You can trace different roles back to the same core. Problematic switching feels disconnected, like different identities without continuity. To tell the difference, observe behavior under stress. Observe treatment of people who offer no benefit. Observe consistency across time. Time reveals coherence or fracture. Psychological aging and adaptation. Patterns evolve. Strategies that worked earlier stop working later. How someone adapts tells you everything. Healthy adaptation adjusts expectations, updates strategies, develops new sources of meaning. Unhealthy adaptation clings to outdated strategies, denies reality, accumulates bitterness. You can predict long-term outcomes by watching how someone handles small disappointments now. Observation over projection. Most people don't observe, they project. They fill gaps with hope, fear, fantasy. Real observation requires time. Varied contexts. Attention to actions over words. The best data comes when someone doesn't know they're being evaluated. Final perspective. This framework isn't about control. It's about clarity. Not power over others, power over your own decisions. Understanding structure replaces confusion with comprehension. It doesn't eliminate risk. It reduces blindness. The mind is not chaotic. It follows patterns. When you learn to see the structure, relationships stop being mysterious and start being navigable. That's not cynicism, that's maturity. And maturity is the foundation of any relationship worth entering.